Audrey,
Yes.
ask me after the adventure why I'm making that face. I will tell you.
I mean,
Right
we
now,
got
no.
into the module, so that's something.
We got into the book.
Yes.
Into the...
We got into the restricted area.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Very easily.
I was legitimately counting on you to do that in order to launch you into the next adventure, because I figured that you would, and I was like, okay, this book is there, and it's hitchhiking.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Excellent.
Lester.
Yeah. So Dewey is born in the Shadowfell. That
Yeah.
happened. So I was like, Shadow. I'm Shadow something. Oh,
yeah.
Shadow touched. Yeah, I was born there.
Yeah, I guess it's touching.
Yeah.
But able to survive in the
really?
material plane, so your parents probably aren't from there.
Yes.
And, and you've been there, you just don't remember it.
Yeah, don't remember, not a thing.
Maybe you were born here too. Maybe you're twins!
Yeah.
Twist!
Oh boy.
Telenovela.
There's a Powered by the Apocalypse game of telenovelas, an RPG. It's hilarious.
Oh my
it's called,
gosh.
but it's called
Passions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. It's so good.
That's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
great.
But we are not brothers. How could we be brothers? We're not even the same age.
Well, you see, time passes differently. You know what? You sort this out.
So a bit of a change of pace from our usual thing. What do y'all think? I will remind you, because I feel this is important. I think Ezra will agree with me on this. The X card is very much in play, because this is more of a horror aspect of it. So if there is something that happens that you are not happy with, exit out. We will no questions, no comments.
Lines and veils
nothing.
are also important if there are things you don't like. Like I learned early on, people don't like teeth. Don't do stuff with teeth.
Eyes are kind of a thing for me, and I didn't realize that until that bit in Masks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a problem. Oh no. Because sometimes you just don't know what your lines
That's
and
right.
veils are until they happen, and then but having the X card let me get through it, because it was like I can get out of it.
I was impressed you did the spider noise, because that was one that you didn't like. Yeah, Mike.
I don't like it when it's aimed at me.
Who does, really?
Yes, my line and veil is anything that happens to me.
No, it's just a creepy sound, but it's a cool sound. But as a sound engineer, I can differentiate between the two.
I am interested in this because I feel like after, we did a bunch of character-based stuff in Baldur's Gate, which was mostly us goofing around and getting a lot of character moments out of that. And so then this also immediately leaned into some of the character stuff that we sort of forced our GM's hand on in Baldur's Gate to give us. And so I think it's nice to have that abrupt tonal shift of we just came from goofing around in a place that should have been scarier than it was to us, and now it's now we're in an actually bad situation, and we're not really in a spot to joke about it until we get a better sense of our bearings. And so I personally like that kind of tonal shift. I think it's going to provide some interesting character development options for us, and just seeing where this goes based on who has what knowledge and all of these weird connections to the Shadowfell that people didn't even know about until we ended up here. So
Yeah.
Ouya's got secrets. That's what I found.
What?
He
No
has
way.
secrets.
Really?
I
No.
thought he was just a normal 8-year-old boy.
But Iris is a real bird now. It's like the worst Pinocchio story ever.
Yes, the skeletal raven became a real raven
Yeah.
in
I'm
the
a real bird
Shadowfell.
now.
Can't imagine if that means anything.
Well, it's the reverse of things. I, just to pull back for our Patreons, during the break, Tiana actually said, if I could just get you all in the same room. And so we were all were just like,
I didn't hear that.
We're all
Sure.
in the same room.
Well, I know I didn't need to say it to you. The biggest, because you were already actively following the person who was making noises that made you go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Most of the issue was getting everyone who was just like, I am not entirely sure what's going on, into the same room, because I was like, I want to transport you all together, because otherwise we're going to have a difficult time.
It's gonna be a weird module with half of us on the material plane. Where did everybody go? Guess I'm going to the bar. And everybody was
That was
like,
a real last episode.
The ultimate party split. One of you is on a different plane than everyone else.
I had I had, in my mind, I had wanted to cast invisibility and go after Wuya when Rusty went out. But by the time I realized, oh, that's what I want to do, you were like deep into like hearing the sound and kind of freaking out, like like trying to find where to jump in, and it didn't happen until after the break.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue because I saw Aliqueen, who will probably join our Patreon.
Yeah, I imagine.
Are you single?
No.
Damn it.
But they
Are
were.
you single?
No, I'm actually not anymore. But yeah, they've been playing D&D for 2 months, and they were wondering any tips for new players. Like, how do you like jump on in there?
I guess they're already in a game, so I think that's the important part.
That's genuinely the hardest
Yeah.
part, is finding the group to be a part of, because like I know people who are openly jealous of how much D&D I play because they have a hard time fitting time for D&D and gaming around life, which totally legit. I don't have a life. I just play tabletop role-playing games.
I mean, figure out what kind of game you like. That's the trick.
Yeah.
And then play that game. Like, if you like the building a character and figuring out how to break all the rules to do crazy stuff, do that.
Yeah.
If you want to not care about that and tell funny stories and, be comic relief, do that.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer.
I find one of the best skills you can work on is finding the balance between staying true to your character, but also appreciating that there's a story that needs to move forward.
Yeah.
And like, even me, who I play for a few years, like today was like an episode where I had a hard time finding that balance, where I'm like, I'd already decided like Odilla's really hungover, she's not gonna wake up till noon, but then she was gone for like a half an hour, and I'd already decided this and it didn't make sense, and so that's when somehow like
And
it takes practice.
And it does. That balancing act is very difficult. I actually recommend for new players to look up Ginny D on YouTube. Yep. She has excellent videos for advice for GMs and players alike. For one of her best things is talking about how to be connected to the adventure, I guess. Because one of the biggest questions is, all of us want to play the hero. Mm-hmm. Well, most of us want to play the hero. And that being, like, we grow up on these stories of, like, the protagonist and their motley crew. But that's not how D&D works. It can't work like that, because this is the story of everyone.
We are all the motley crew.
Yeah.
And
we're all the
simultaneously.
protagonists.
Exactly.
So B. Dave Walters describes D&D as, hey, do you want to hang out with me for 5 months camping and become gods? Because that's what D&D is. It's like, this happens in like a ridiculously short period of time.
I mean, it's true. We did the entire Waterdeep Dragon Heist module in universe, a 10-day. We went from level 1 to level 5 in universe in a 10-day.
Wow.
And that's also, like, I think tonight was even a great example with what we just talked about. Like, my biggest thing for new players is communicate with your GM and with your other players, and don't be afraid to talk about what you need and what you want from a game. Great example, tonight, we've got a whole bunch of experienced people. I think almost everyone at this table has been a GM on some level or another and stuff. So when we were at break and our GM was like, I just need to get you all in the same room. And that wasn't even telling us how to do it or anything. It was just kind of making the comment, which is a statement of this is what we need for that plot to move forward. And then we all independently were like, we can figure out ways to get our characters to the same. Like, it's not, it's going to be a little more of a stretch for some of us than others, but we all are able to find a way into that. And I am notorious for going to other players and my GM, like, between sessions and being like, hey, I have this thought about this thing, or hey, this thing that happened was, like, made me a little uncomfortable. Not X card level, but something where it's like, we should watch for this in the future because it was very awkward. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to, like, communicate that, because until you've played with the group for a long time, you have those kind of shorthand where you don't need that. You have to just be upfront and talk about it.
But even when you've played with people for a long time, because the thing that happens if you've played in a group for a long time is it actually in some ways becomes harder to have those conversations because you're like, oh man, we've done this for years and he's just like that and it's fine, And so even if you're in a group that you've been in for a long time, still, if something happens that you liked, tell them. If something happens you didn't like, tell them. There's a lot of systems have like, the first one that did it was Primetime Adventures, had the idea of fan mail, where it was essentially inspiration but the players gave it to other players. And the idea was, that was awesome, keep doing that.
Oh, I like that.
And so it was an immediate kind of like positive reinforcement spiral that kind of happened. And it was like, I really liked when you did that. I want to see more of that. And it sort of gave, and it, it reinforces the positive behaviors, which automatically kind of disincentivizes the negative behaviors.
Sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of passing off, I don't know if you did intentionally or unintentionally, but Odila had been out for like a solid 30, and then you ran up to her room and knocked on the door, bringing her into the game. And I know multiple times that has happened amongst this table. And like, if you notice that, this is an advanced technique, if you will.
Which S is that?
Sharing.
I was strategizing. Yeah.
I like sharing.
Sharing's much better.
Sharing this story, because like if you see a player that has or is sitting out a lot more often than not, it could be like some people may not be as quick on the draw as some other folks are when it comes to answering. So just like weaving them into the into the story. Into the story just draws you all in together. So that's an advanced technique you can practice at your next game.
I have two things that I would say. One, you can leave a table.
Yes.
You can, if it's not fun, why do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
No D&D is better than bad D&D.
Bye.
And the other one is something that do as I say, not as I do. Read your spells. And these Gale Force 9 spell cards are great. So if you type in exclamation wizard into the chat. Anyway.
I also thank you for noticing and acknowledging that. That was actually a very deliberate thing that I did, because I recognized as a player, I think we all need to be in the same place for this story. This was before break even, obviously, but I was, I've played for a very long time. I've run modules. I've homebrewed. I can sense these things. And I was like, we all need to get together at some point just to get us all to the same place. And so that was the thing where I was like, what can I do? And I was like, nope, this would be, I'll at least throw something out there that gives Odila an opportunity. And she can take it however she wants. But something where it's like, you're going to see one of your party members show up out of the blue, be a little panicked about something, give you a weird ominous warning, and then I'm going to book it and continue doing what my character would do. But trying to open those doorways, and I think this table particularly is very aware of that, because this table splits the party, I think, more than any table I've ever been at.
We've had a 5-way split.
We've had multiple 5-way splits.
Also, to that me over here, it's like, hey, Mrs. Moreover, can I join you? Nah, kid, bitch, move out the way.
That was like the challenge we had at the beginning when we were starting this campaign, and I think we still have it, is there isn't like that strong of things that keep us together as a group. And that's just based on like our backstories and the characters we've created. There isn't this larger quest, compared to like Dragon Vice Fire Peak.
Kill the dragon!
Yeah.
Well, that's an episodic. This is a monster of the week.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which can be a little bit more challenging, because I have the same not issue, but the same thing with Down Darker Trails, where it's like there isn't this big overarching thing. Why am I when things get real shitty? Why do I stay with this group of people?
Yeah.
Which is actually part of why I kind of forced y'all to go thrown off into the adventure, because I was like, I like the idea of the books dictating the adventure.
Yeah, that's a good hook.
Yep.
And to that end, I also think that because we're aware of that, and because we're aware that we have very disparate characters, I think that we're trying to find ways to make our characters want to stay together and to forge those connections. Some of it's obligation, some of it's actual care, some of it's just the fact that it's like, every time one of us touches something, all of us get screwed over, so we're keeping an eye on each other. But I think that's a really fun and interesting part of the structure of the Candlekeep kind of episodic, trying to run these episodic modules as an overarching campaign.
Les will 100% push that button.
Lester is going to be sleeping on the couch for the rest of this
If
campaign.
there's a button in front of him, he will 100% push it.
Yeah, and it's definitely like there is an overarching story. You guys just haven't found it yet.
Sure.
Then you're starting to see the edges of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am heading in that direction, let's put it that way. And I'm going to be consulting with some people who are much better at this sort of thing than I am to figure out how to make this really work. But you're starting to see the edges of it.
But it was good that this module began with essentially forcing us into the adventure, because aside from Dewey, who's trying to make money, there wasn't really any motivation for us to take on another assignment from the Avowed. So this came at the perfect time, and it'd be interesting to see if an adventure like this is the first adventure that was really forced on us, if that will help us bond more than we have in the past.
And of course, the danger of that is that the Shadowfell is a realm of despair. Like, there are actual mechanics for despair in the Shadowfell.
We can actually add sanity to our sheets and have a sanity check if
God.
they're
I was trying to think of like what less despair would be like.
Yeah.
I have to.
I would be very interested in what would affect Les to the point of bringing him to despair.
The mint julep came close.
mortality.
Yeah.
Returning
Actually,
to
that
mortality.
makes sense.
His family, you know, like if a shadow, if a shadow of his one of his long dead great grandchildren shows up, you know, that would do
You
it.
have great grandchildren? You had children? I mean, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. We've been married for 100 years, but you didn't really tell me much about what you did before then.
had a whole family.
Interesting.
Dropping that.
I have backstory.
I don't. You guys have to realize, Ezra came in with basically no backstory, and I have a fully written backstory about Sabachthani and her family and why she's here, and it's very interesting because I think we've just decided that Lester doesn't know about it. So it's making things interesting.
Always assume incompetence and lack of attention from that.
You know, as you do. Well, thank you all Patreon friends so much for joining us for this QNC After Dark. I'll be very interested to see what people think about this, because this is, again, such a tonal shift, and it's very different than what Swords and Sages has done before. So we appreciate y'all sticking with us. We appreciate everything that you do with us and for us. We're able to be back in this beautiful studio that I'm so happy to be back in. I almost cried a couple of times. I was just so happy because
It's honestly,
this place is
You
real.
sure it wasn't that chair?
I'm pretty sure it was every time Thomas kicked the table that made her cry.
the problem for me with being in studio, like when we're playing on Zoom, I don't stop. I'm like when we're playing here, I'm just like, oh wow, he's doing some really cool stuff, and I'm just gonna start watching. And I didn't really, in the Zoom, I didn't really do that. It's funny.
See, but I think so. I watch these things back now and again, and I love seeing that active listening. That like what you are saying is so cool that I just want to focus on what you're doing right now. I'm throwing the attention in the scene to you, and then it's your scene, and everyone pays attention to what you're doing, and I don't know. I think it's easier to focus here because there isn't my house around me and the cat's clawing at the door behind me and the occasional throw up sound.
And the power of the internet on the screen you're looking at is like, oh, look at some spells right
See,
now.
it's a killer for my ADHD. Yeah. I'm gonna have to start bringing my chainmail and doing it over here with my hand to keep my hands busy.
Patreons, you don't realize this. All Thomas does the whole time is play Bejeweled.
I know we're trying to wrap up, but
Yes.
do we have quotes that we want to do?
right.
Go
Actually,
ahead.
So one of the other problems was I didn't write down a lot of quotes because I was like, this is really good.
Yeah.
So, patrons, we need you to get in the chat and drop your favorite
So
quotes
let's
to
see.
help
I
us fill it out.
have, you sound like a doctor, but you don't sound like a doctor. That's very cool about her. She stabs books. It was pretty cool leaving this place. Mini morph, which I think that's the winner, really. But I really like this thing Tiana said. What is a ghost but a particularly strong thought?
Oh, I like that one too.
Maybe just we call the next episode a particularly strong thought.
I like it, but I also don't like it.
Oh, I'm gonna keep playing with that.
On the plus side, that means I can never create a ghost.
So I will say this: SEO wants us to call something Shadowfell.
So find your favorite quotes where we reference
Yes,
the Shadowfell or the Raven
It's going to
Queen
be called
or anything
What
like
Not to Do in the
What
Shadow.
not to do in the Shadowfell? There it is.
what we don't do in the
Big
Shadowfell.
capital letters on the knots.
What not to do in the
10
Shadowfell.
things to not do in the Shadowfell.
Next episode is just a listicle.
I mean, isn't the other option what we do in the Shadows fell?
On that bombshell.
You can chew on that one.
And then we'll just
On
have
that
a
bomb-
thumbnail with a
On that bombshell, thank you again so much, Patreon friends. We will see you in the Discord. Make sure to, do all of the things. You chat with us. We love you. You're wonderful people. Have a great night.
Not you, Bomb Clancy.
Nice.